Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book which has come to us from the Legal Action Group. It's one that they have been publishing for a number of years now, involved in a very important area for many people. It's the subject of repairs. This is Tenants Rights concerning repairs, now in a 5th edition, being written by well-known author and judge Jan Luber, Queen's Counsel, Deirdre Forster and also Beatrice Previtt. And the Legal Action Group have produced this as a paperback and also as an e-book. And we'll have a look at the book in a minute. I'd like to thank Legal Action Group for producing this new edition. It's incredibly reader-friendly, and it's something that anybody who is trying to ascertain or assert certain rights concerning the need to repair a dwelling will be well advised to obtain and read. It's cheap and readily accessible to all. Now, my wife Elizabeth and I talked about the book, and we've given it a title for our review, which should be on the web and in the journal shortly, of Getting to Grips with the Law and Practice Relating to Housing Disrepair in 2016. And what we've got here is a modern statement of what the law is, with the new 5th edition, which actually came out around the end of the year, the 2015, early part of 2016. Now, before we talk about the actual review, let's look at the book. It's a paperback, front cover there, you can see, nice little paperback. There is the spine, and then on the back there are a lot of nice quotes, some of which I have used in this review because actually some of the journals have really been kind with the actual comments they've made about the book. Now, the book is split up, as you probably gather, as usual, into the main part, which is there, then there's a shaded bit, which is the appendices, and they are there, setting out legislation, precedents, and all sorts of other things. Tomlin order, particularly helpful, I thought, by the way. Then right at the back, you've got the index, which is referring to paragraph numbering, so you should be able to find things quite quickly. And then, as I say, you've got a whole range of quite useful things here. This is one that I think is very important because it sets out the basic wording for a Tomlin order, and I think that would be of great help. There's also a lot of additional stuff concerning, for instance, there's chronology. That gives you an idea of the sort of content of what you need to do. And what they've actually got here is the letter of claim. Remember, there's a protocol to deal with all of this. Then there's a letter of claim, and there are various other things. I'm not going into detail with what's in the protocol, but you will be aware that the protocol is there. And you have to follow it if you're going to be successful. I know, because I've done some of the cases, and it does work. It may be a lot of time consuming stuff, but it works. These are the authors. There's the front page. And I do think this helps. There's an author's note basically thanking people very much. And it actually says what this book is about. The title we gave it was, "This book is intended to be of help to tenants and their advisors in getting to grips with the law and practice relating to housing disrepair." That's what I said in the title of our review, and that's exactly what they say in the note. And they're absolutely right. There we go. You've got the content section there. There are 8 main chapters. Then you've got the appendices, technical information, precedents, and then there's a Kemp and Kemp inflation table right at the end, which is quite useful. What I did think was quite important is chapter 7 on the particular problems, because when a client comes to you, they could well be talking about a specific area of a problem. For instance, gas safety, fire safety. One that is a problem is condensation dampness, which is well dealt with. And of course, you must bear in mind you could well need expert evidence in some cases. There's a table of cases there, running all the way through. Then you've got some statutes, statutory instruments. There is, of course, the statutes just before them, which is there. And then after that you've got, which is coming in now, international legislation. We're finding more and more books, 2016 onwards, are having international legislation. Very useful abbreviations. Thank you, LAG, for doing this again. You're an abbreviation yourselves, but thank you for doing the abbreviations. They do help. And then there's a very useful introduction from the authors. Do read it because it tells you how to use this book. And I'm addressing these remarks not just to lawyers and advisors, but to people who've got a problem as the lay clients who are unrepresented and may need some help. There's a shifting landscape, talking about disrepair at the current time, and simplification of the law a waiting game, a tenure shift and various other things, and then social housing is mentioned, of course. Then, for instance, you've got the chapters. This is just an example. Right at the beginning, you have a useful, just a short index of what's actually in the chapter, and again, that makes life a bit easier. The footnoting does give you more detail for the cases and any case referencing and so forth. Then there's funding, all of the problems concerning funding and so forth, running all the way through. These are particular problems that may crop up with housing disrepair, carbon monoxide being quite a big one. And then there's, of course, the role of the Ombudsman and so forth. The book runs to, as I say, about 350, nearly 360 pages. Another excellent book from LAG. Can I just say, I've said it before, but I'll say it again, on behalf of all practitioners, judiciary and so on, thank you to Legal Action Group for what you're doing here. These are books I see in the courts every time I go into court, certainly in the county courts. It's the simple area, it's what we need, and it really is a service that we appreciate. So thank you to all of the people involved. Your access to justice approach, that's the little logo you have. The Access to Justice charity, which is there, I'll just give you a little note there. It's exactly what it is, and I'm very grateful to all of you for the work you do, so thank you. Now, this is what we say about the book. All tenants need to refer to this important book, which is modestly priced. It's been described as about as direct and informative as any work can be, which aims to describe the law and practice of what you need to do if you require your landlord to carry out proper repairs. And of course, it's always a very difficult request to make, in many cases, and actually quite a complex subject for any nervous tenant to understand. And I'm sure we've had them. I've had them very recently. And trying to get landlords to do things sometimes is not easy. The authors, who I've mentioned, Jan Luber, Deirdre Forster and Beatrice Prevert, have rightly stated at the beginning that this book is intended to be of help to tenants and their advisors in getting to grips with the law and practice relating to housing disrepair, which I've mentioned before, but I think deserves emphasis, getting to grips with what you've got to do. And they carry out their mission, the authors, brilliantly, we think, with exceptional help from a variety of different contributors. What we particularly liked was the tribute paid to the practitioners and the practitioner advisors, who they described thus: "We owe a debt of gratitude and pay our respects to all legal and housing lawyers and advisors who work so hard to improve housing conditions for their clients." And they go on certainly to make a number of observations. Anyone who's been elected as a councillor, I have twice in different authorities, will know exactly what they're talking about, because they will know some of the problems that we have if you've ever served on a housing committee, as I have. We would also add that these sentiments apply, as far as lawyers are concerned, also to the Legal Action Group itself, which remains the backbone of the contentious litigant and any person seeking to try to establish their rights in any area of welfare law. The reason for that being that in fact these books are the best guide excuse me, as to where you're going to go with any case that you have. The new edition runs to 350 pages and has 8 chapters and 4 appendices. And I think of particular importance is Appendix B, which has been written by Mel Cairns, MCIEH, which covers technical information and how to understand an expert report. I again thought that was very important, because quite often, if you think about it from the tenant's point of view, they've got a problem and they have no real idea what the problem's about, especially if it's about a house, because they're not going to be builders, they're not going to know. So therefore the expert report is quite helpful, because it will make it easier to understand what is going on. And so, for as usual, what LAG have done is they've produced a practical, hands-on approach, which I think is easy to understand for the lay person. And this is what you're going to get from the book, should you be seeking a solution to the issue of disrepair. And what I've done is I've listed part of what's actually in the detail here, and I'm going to explain it. So if that's a problem that you listening to this video have, at least you've got some idea of what this book may offer you by way of some sort of assistance. First of all, a practical step-by-step guidance on how to bring a disrepair claim with an invaluable set of precedents, with worked examples used at all stages of the court process, extracts from legislation and helpful guidance on technical information. Again, as I've said, the expert report problem can be quite a big one. Also, there are additional areas. New emphasis in the current edition, the fifth one, on rights to repair in the private rented sector, including commentary on retaliatory eviction, new obligations for all private landlords, and use of the law to clamp down on rogue landlords and their agents. Of course, there are new things like licences coming in some councils, which is probably the prelude of other things to come. Then there's extensive guidance on remedies for disrepair, withholding and setting off against rent, which is a common one, of course, complaints procedures and the Ombudsman injunctions, pre-action protocol for disrepair, which is very, very important and a very helpful guidance, bearing in mind what's in the Green Book, which is not the easiest to follow, I have to say, and then the ADR system, the Alternative Dispute Resolution System. Also, you've got in the book up-to-date coverage of funding arrangements post-LASPO, the end of legal aid, scope, eligibility and the merits test for legal aid and other means of financing disrepair claims, including conditional fee agreements, that's CFAs, and before the event BTE insurance. And finally, there's a detailed coverage, which I do think is also very helpful, of case law and recovery of damages for landlord's breach of contract or tortious liability, including the recent Court of Appeal decision in Mojani versus Durban Estates Limited concerning the assessment of damages. So having said that, those are the basic contents in the book. And if any of those apply to you, this is the sort of book you'd need to read. Let me conclude by saying something just on the commentaries about this and, of course, the general LAG publications. The leading law journals, as always, have been very helpful and supportive, and they've always welcomed these books for their appropriateness for the worried, unrepresented party, and no more so than now with serious problems for the accessibility of many to basic justice. So thank goodness for LAG and Repair's Tenants Rights, which remains a must-have purchase, I think, for the heavy workload of the average housing and welfare law practitioner today. I'd expect to see councils have this book as well, so they've got some idea of where in fact we're going with the whole issue of disrepair as our society sort of moves forward. There are a lot of properties that need some assistance. The law anyway is stated as at December 2015. Let me just run through it very quickly with you again. There's the front of the book, the spine, and then the back. And if I just open it up right in the middle, funding. There we go, you've got the whole problem of CFAs covered there if you're going to go for that. Proceedings under the Environmental Protection Act. Again, an important area if you wish to invoke that particular thing. Bad housing conditions and the Housing Act 2004. So you see you've got an awful lot, and then you've got the, here we go, right at the end, chapter 7, particular problems again, drains and sewers, that's a common one. Then right at the beginning, if I just remind you, you've got the table of contents, which is again very, very helpful and very detailed. Again, thank you to all concerned. It's an excellent book, and right up at the top of all of LAG's publications. As I said, they're not expensive to buy, and they are a mine of extremely useful practical help and support. Thank you to all concerned. Good luck with whatever you're doing and whatever case you're trying to sort out at the moment. Bye-bye.